So my journey into social work started with my fun life, which was a life that I had when I was a holiday rep in Ibiza, and I worked with kids, and then I went to work on cruise ships to run youth programmes there. And that for me was the point when I absolutely just knew that I loved working with young people. Unfortunately, when I was away at sea, there was some quite unfortunate events where a couple of the children that we worked with, its parents passed away on the cruise ships, and trying to support them through such a traumatic time was a real eye-opener for me. And so I knew that actually once I got back from living the dream on a cruise ship, I wanted to go and be somebody who could actually help. So I was fortunate enough to land a job working with young carers in Harrogate, and I did that for 4 years and I absolutely loved it. And then from there I moved on to be an area youth worker for North Yorkshire County Council, whilst working in residential care at one of the children's homes as well. And it was in those 3 roles back here in the UK that made me really realise that actually there's more to this. And actually for me to see a progression, but also to see the level of responsibility that I can take, the natural progression for me was social work. So I went off, applied to quite a lot of universities, and eventually settled on Hull University, which I absolutely loved. Made some really good friends there, and learned a lot about myself. And then was fortunate enough to land the job here back in North Yorkshire, here in Knaresborough, working for the safeguarding team, and that's where I've been since I qualified. The sorts of things we do to try and help keep families together. A great service that we like to use is family group conferencing, whereas actually if there's a challenge for a family, or actually a family are really struggling to care for a child, or they're struggling to manage a child's behaviour, the view that we have is that we need to pull in external sources within their support networks. That could be friends, family, neighbours, whoever. Try to help pull them together to try and help give them a more robust support. So it's not leaning necessarily on professionals or on social workers, it's about helping the family find the solutions for themselves. We do spend a lot of time with families doing our assessments, and we're very open and honest about what our agenda is, what our plan is, and what we would need to see for the family for us to be able to, I suppose, walk out the door. And often being able to put that back on the family to help them try and find the solutions helps them feel more in control than what we are. People think all the time that our job is to just remove kids, and that's not just what we do at all. It's a very unfortunate part, and it's a very much last resort part of our job. And I just think that people forget the amount of effort and work that people put in, whether that's spending time with people, getting to know people, building relationships, trying to understand what their individual experiences are, to try and help identify what that is that they need, and getting other professionals in. There's so many different agencies around that can offer different support to families at times, and I think sometimes you just need somebody to coordinate that. That's often how I would like to see my job, is to be able to coordinate how this family are going to sort this out. I'm just going to be the person that helps them move things around and make it better. Everyone responds differently to us turning up on their doorstep, and I think that is probably dependent on their previous experiences or what they fear social workers are there to do. So I've had parents who have been shaking in absolute fear by the fact that I've been sat in their lounge. I've had parents be verbally abusive. I've had parents not let me in. I've had every situation you can have. And I suppose you can't always imagine what it might feel like to have a social worker turn up on your door until it happens. What I try and do is I try to minimise the impact of how I might look and what people might preconceive me as whilst I walk into that family's home. I often walk around in my trainers and my hoodie like any normal person to try and get a bit of a barrier down. And I think for me, what I just try and do is to try and build a bit of a rapport and chat with them about, this is who I am, this is where I'm from, this is the reason why I'm here. I try and be empathic, I try and be understanding, and I try, I suppose, and just to build a bit of a relationship. And sometimes, you might go in with an agenda on that initial visit and be like, right, I need to find this out, I need to find this out, I need to find this out. You walk into a situation, there's no way you're going to find any of that out today. So you put, bat in your bag and you just sit there and chat, because actually that is probably more important on a lot of the initial visits than writing anything down. And make an arrangement to go back a couple of days later, a week later, and get the information that it is that you want, or that it is that you need to be able to start your assessment. But sometimes every time you've got to put the family first, you've got to put how they're feeling first, because if not, they're not going to work with you. My absolute passion is working with young people. Teenagers, I absolutely think they're amazing. So for me, I absolutely love being the person who's on their side, whether that's a teenager, whether that's a parent, whether that's a tiny weeny child who can't speak yet. I want to be the person who's got their back. And I do everything I can to make them feel supported. So the way that I work is very much about high challenge, high support. So I may challenge them, but I'm incredibly supportive along the way. And for me, I think seeing some of the changes over the past couple of years of how some of our young people and some of our children and even some of our parents, how they have changed and developed and grown is absolutely amazing. I just think I'm really privileged to have been a part of that journey for them. And often I think when you come in to close a case, you might feel a little bit teary about it because it's a bit like, oh, we have been through so much together. I have seen so much of what you've done and how you've achieved, and it's actually not been an easy ride, but actually this is amazing. So for me, getting up in the morning, the thing that gets me out of bed is if my favourite group of people to work with is my teenagers. So they're the thing that get me out of bed in the morning, because I want to be that person who's there for them every step of the way. I want to be the person who believes in them when nobody else does. And I genuinely am. And I will fight tooth and nail to try and shift everybody else's view of this child or young person, to try and help people understand that this kid is a product of his experiences. And actually people being negative about them isn't helping that, it's just reinforcing it. So I will always have their back and be their advocate 110% of the time. So I think sometimes with social work, people don't realise that we are professionals. I think people will sit around a table from us and just think they're just a social worker. But I mean, it's a hard feat to get to where we are today. And we've, like, for example, myself, I've done 2 undergraduate degrees, not necessarily needed, but then I did my master's degree in social work. We've done our assessed year of employment, which is all coursework and being developed and exposing us to different scenarios, try and give us as many skills as we can to try and feel confident in managing certain situations. That alongside then we have our personal development plans, which then look at individual areas of development. So the local authority will encourage us to go on different parts of training and try and help build on our knowledge every single day of the year. And I think a lot of that, we underestimate the amount of learning that we do, in the office between social workers listening to other people, but also having the ability to learn off peers. So we have 11 social workers in our team. That's 11 different people with 11 different pockets of knowledge, with 11 different opportunities to go out and shadow them, learn from them, understand what experiences they have. And I think sometimes people think, oh, you're just a newly qualified social worker. Oh, if only you knew what it took for me to even get to be a newly qualified social worker, then you might, sometimes give me a bit of credit for that. But that's fine. You see me as a newly qualified and I'll surprise you with my knowledge. I think children's social work matters because everybody needs somebody. So every child needs somebody who's crazy about them. Every child needs somebody who is there to look out for them. And fundamentally, what I say to my parents that I work with is my job is the exact same as yours. My job is to help keep your kids safe. Your job is to help keep your kids safe. And I think sometimes parents and children get themselves into situations where somebody else from the outside needs to come in and help. And I think for me, having social workers who wholly believe in children and young people and families is an absolute amazing opportunity to be able to help families resolve situations that will achieve the best outcomes for children.